The last chapter of the Laws of Deios, chapter 7, number 4, where the Rambam is speaking about avak lashon hara, meaning what you say in itself is not lashon hara, but it has the dustings, meaning it could bring about, it could cause one to speak what you shouldn't speak. It alludes to certain things, or it may create a setting which may provoke certain negative comments or negative information may be shared. So therefore, even that you're not permitted to say, because it may actually provoke it. For instance, he gives examples. Somebody speaks about the positive qualities of a person in the presence of his enemies, and it's something they don't want to hear. That has the dustings of lashon hara. Why? Because that provokes them. You're saying he's such a special person because of the position is the most extreme negative of that person. It's going to provoke them to say something which is negative. Okay, now, my question is this. Avak lashon hara is only rabbinical. It's rabbinical. Seemingly, why is this considered a Torah violation? Because you're not permitted to put a stumbling block before a blind man. Meaning, if a person himself is not permitted to drink wine because he's a Nazarite, or some other thing, you offer not kosher meat to eat, and he's a person where there's a chance he may eat that meat, it's a Torah violation. You're putting a stumbling block before a person because that person may have vulnerability to that, and he may cross the line. So by saying something in the presence of one's enemies, which will provoke them to speak negative about that person, it's true, they're speaking, that's their choice. But who what was the basis why they should spoke? The basis is because you created a setting for them to fall victim to this situation. So why is avak lashon hara only rabbinic law? It should be a Torah law, Torah violation, violation of putting the stumbling block before a blind man. Seemingly, I don't have an answer to the question, but nevertheless, it's classified as avak, or maybe there's certain instances which it's rabbinical, but some instances of avak lashon hara, which the dustings, because it will lead to that. It's not, you haven't said it yourself, but since based on causality, you're the one who causes it to come about, it is lifnei v'disid l'mirshol. That avak lashon hara is you're in violation of putting a stumbling block before a blind man. That's what I would say. Regarding this particular situation, Omar Shlomo, King Solomon proverb says, "Mevorech re'eu b'kol godol b'boker." One who praises his fellow loudly in the morning, where word gets around, the people around, the boker hashkem, before the whole tumult of the day. So sound carries very far. You sing his praises, but those praises will bring curse upon him. What I said something positive, but you don't realize by spreading that positive information, it's only going to provoke people to speak negative. I'll give you an example, which the Chavetz speaks about. Somebody's very generous and he lends you money. And he is generous and he lent you because he's really a good person. And you share with others, and people say, how did you afford the down payment on your house? She said, so-and-so is an exceptional person. He lent me the money. So he's speaking something positive, but you realize you created a problem for that man. Because now everybody's going to be knocking on his door for loans, and it's really considered confidential that he gave you the money. He doesn't want his name to be known out there. But my intent was only to praise him. I want to tell people how special he is. He went the extra mile for me, but that extra mile for him is putting a dagger in his back. That's what you're doing. You're praising, but ultimately you created a cursed situation for him. He's in a very compromised position because of that. Shemitoch tovoso boli de roso. through speaking positive about it, you brought about detriment to that person. Person, jokingly says, not in a serious manner. Larry, do you remember that time when you nearly choked on the chop suey? And everybody's laughing. And even Larry remembers it. But you know something? And it wasn't Moshe Pei King. Moshe Pei King had a hechsher, had a certification. Right? It was Ho Chi Minh's chop suey. He was the proprietor. So what he say? I said it jokingly, just to bring back a humorous past fact. But simultaneously, he spoke about somebody eating non-kosher. That's a negative piece of information. Unless it has constructive value, you're not permitted to share it with anyone. Or kalas rosh, in levity. A person's a comedian. He picks on certain people, and people are laughing with levity. But within that levity, he's saying information which is not praiseworthy about certain people. He's pointing out certain skeletons they may have in their closets. He's not saying in a way that it's saying that he wants to necessarily hurt that person with animosity, with hate. He's not. Doesn't make a difference what your intention is, but factually speaking, if you say something which is negative, which doesn't have constructive value, you've crossed the line. A person goes and shoots arrows. He has a flamethrower. Could you imagine? A person wants to light a cigarette or a big cigar. And he takes out a flamethrower and he lights the cigar. When he lights the cigar, he burns off the person's face. It's pretty funny. But you realize you destroyed the person. You nearly incinerated him. So a person says, I meant this. I was only meant it in humor. I didn't mean it. But you know what? I'm only joking. I don't mean it in any way to hurt the person. But factually speaking, you shared information which is negative. And it's nobody's business but the person himself. Therefore, you cross the line. The person speaks Lashon in a deceitful way. What's deceitful way? Person says something innocently. By the way, I was walking and I happened to see this person. He walked out of taxi and it was 8:45 Saturday morning. It was Shabbat. And he's telling of a whole story. He's talking about something else, but in passing, piece of information is about this person walking out of a cab on Shabbos. And somebody said, by the way, what you said, you shouldn't have said. He says, what did I say? I was telling you that I was walking down the shore, and it happened to be 10%, but I didn't realize. I shouldn't have said it. So the way he says it, it seems an innocence. But the person really had it planned. He wanted to intermingle that piece of information that he should appear that he's doing it in innocence, but he's not innocent. There's no innocence here. Elo. When you protest and you respond to that person, Omer he says, I didn't know. If I would have known, I wouldn't have said it. That's the person's response. Oh, Shilu Maisav Shaploni. Give me an example. A person suspects somebody did something to victimize him, to harm him. And the person comes and says, by the way, did you harm me? Did you cause it? He says, no, I didn't. But there was one other person who happened to have been walking around. His name is Jack Smith. You're not saying Jack Smith is the person who did it. But if you're claiming you're not the one, and the only older person was this Jack Smith, so what do you think you're saying? That the one who caused you the financial loss or whatever problem was, it's Jack Smith. But I didn't say it. That's what you deducted from what I said. Whatever way you want to slice it, whatever way you want to twist it, you weren't permitted to say what you said. It's through illusion, through anything else. Now, some people are very good at forensic evidence. You give them enough facts, they can figure out who it is. I'll give you an example. Now I'm saying this in jest. There used to be a person who used to come to Shai Gold's office. He wore red socks. He wore Ked sneakers that went out of style about 70 years ago. It had stars on it. And he wore something else. And he would come and he'd cross his legs, pull up his pants to show his socks. I don't know what they were, maroon color, whatever they were. And I try to figure out who it is. So anybody from way back then knows who it is. Okay. But did I say his name? But he had his insignia, right? He had his logo. I didn't say logo. I said logo with a G. Okay. That's my humor for the day. Okay. Oh, I don't realize. I'm only giving information, and then the person figures it out for himself who the person was. Give you an example. Somebody picked a lock and broke into a house, and then you share with somebody, by the way, I recently had a lock installed by a lock maker, and his name is John Cohn. And he's the only locksmith within a radius of 3 miles. Person says, now I understand who probably broke into my house. Because nobody else has the ability to pick such a lock, only this professional locksmith. I didn't say anything. Did I say? I'm just sharing with you. Ever want a lock replaced? So this is the man to go. Or if you get locked out of your house, he could open the lock. That is bona fide Lashon Hara. You're not permitted to say it, because in reality, you are sharing the information. You're transmitting information which is negative, which has no constructive value. Very often the Torah says you're not permitted to do something, then says, V'yiresim me'Hashem Elokechem. V'yiresim Hashem Elokecha. You should fear God. So Rashi always cites the Chazal. You may say in innocence, I didn't realize. You give a person bad advice, and the advice you give him, it's bad advice, and you're giving it because you have a conflict of interest. So the person says, I meant well. It says, you should fear God. God knows your intent. You could fool everybody, but God, you can't pull the wool over his eyes. Kaviyochel. Can't. So if you know there's going to be accountability, then you better behave yourself. And that's why the Torah goes and emphasizes that point by all these various situations where somehow you could present yourself like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Hashem says, the sheep's clothing don't disguise who you are. I see clearly who you are. See, if a person would be cognizant that there's accountability and you can't evade the reality, you're not going to cross that line. Why does anybody commit a crime or do something which is illegal? Because he believes he can get away with it. If he knows for a fact he's going to be reprimanded and penalized, there's no way he's going to cross that line. So because he believes, he deludes himself, somehow he's going to get away with it. He's not going to be accountable. Hashem says there's accountability here. Because my gaze you can't escape. I'm cognizant of every movement and every nuance and every intent that you have, regardless of what you tell the world. The prerequisite to wisdom is fear of God. You have people very smart. They do foolish things, and they destroy their lives. But you're so smart. Because you're so smart, that's why you're stupid. If you would be so smart, what do you expect of the person? But with your degree of intelligence, you understand. How do you behave this way? Don't you realize you're going straight into the bear trap? How do you do it? So what's Reishis Chochmah? What is the prerequisite to wisdom? King Solomon, David Melech says, Yiras Hashem. If you fear God, that will allow you to maintain your wisdom and always behave and portray yourself only as a what? As a wise man. Because you will behave wisely. Because you have that degree of fear of heaven, that will maintain the accountability and the cognizance that you need to behave properly. But if you have no fear of God, and you believe there's nothing you can't get away with, and you're not cognizant of accountability, you can make very foolish decisions. And you can go down a path which a man, based on your understanding, you should not go down that path. It's time to use a beautiful mashal, an allegory to explain something. There was this group of people, and they were plotting to overthrow the Tsar, the king. And they would meet in secret, and they wore a certain type of tunic. A black tunic with a purple sash. And they would meet. And the secret police of the king was investigating this group. They were revolutionaries, and when they get caught, they're going to be what? They're going to be put to death. Okay? And they all wore, to identify with one another, when they would see one another, immediately they would know they're part of this revolutionary group. They go together to eat, to talk about the plans, to a restaurant. And one person says he's going to pick up the tab. All of them. And they eat to their heart's desire because this one person is picking up the tab. At the end of the story, listen what happens. The person says, I'm not picking up the tab for anybody. Every person has to pay his own way. Sounds familiar, the story. And one of the people says he can't pay for his meal. So the proprietor of the restaurant says, you know something? Firstly, I'm going to confiscate your garments as collateral for what you owe me. Besides that, you can be here all night washing dishes. And that's how you're going to pay the bill for what you ate. The person goes home and he's upset at the person who didn't pay the tab. He's upset at the restaurant owner, took his clothing, and he was up all night washing dishes. In the meantime, there was a sting operation from the government, and they knew to arrest anybody who wore this kind of tunic. This person's walking back 3 o'clock in the morning after washing dishes all night, and he doesn't have his tunic because the restaurant keeper stripped it off his back. He left it as collateral to pay the balance. He's fuming. All of a sudden, he gets word that all the people who wore that tunic were arrested, and they're waiting for the death sentence. He can't be thankful enough to that person didn't pick up the tab. As a result of that, he had to leave his tunic. The restaurant keeper took it away from him, and he's gone back where he can't be identified as one of the revolutionaries. So not having money saved his life. Sometimes, you want to rub shoulders with certain people. No. No, it means to be able to afford a Brioni suit. Cheapest Brioni suit is $6,000. But there's one problem. Every Brioni suit, not only is the lining shatnez, wool and linen, the fabric is wool and linen. You understand? That's how not permitted it is for a Jew to wear it. But you're wearing a Brioni suit. When the day of reckoning comes, you can be identified as as that culprit. As the revolutionary. God says you're not permitted to wear it. I don't care what kind of label it has. I don't care who the designer is. Brioni or Gucci. It's irrelevant who it is. It's wool and linen. You're not permitted to wear it. You're going to be prosecuted. The answer is because you wanted to be identified with this high society. But if you have Yiras Shamayim, if you have fear of heaven, and you understand that's accountability, and you're cognizant of that accountability, you walk away from it. And you thank God 1,000 times that you weren't drawn into this foolishness, which ultimately you're going to pay a very heavy price.